François Legault is trying to give the people of Quebec hope. So, apparently, and for those of you who may be listening, you're like, who the heck is François Legault? He is the Premier of Quebec. A Premier is basically like Canada's version of a governor, I think is the best way to describe it. Doug Ford is the Ontario one that we always complain about. Anyway, so there is an election coming up. I think it's next year, but it's the provincial one, not the federal one. Unless, people are like, hey, Trudeau, you wasted all that money for the election and nothing changed. Anyway, so François Legault was on RDS, which is like the French TSN, basically, and said that the province's government are trying to meet with Gary Bettman in the coming months about bringing the Nordiques back. Quote, and this is the article I'm reading is from Daily Face-Off. Quote, I have spoke with Mr. Bettman and we have meetings with him in the coming months, Legault said. You have to look at who is ready to invest. We have an amphitheater in Quebec that has already been built. We are in the process of making contact with Mr. Bettman. We are looking at what we need to bring back the Nordiques. I think we are capable of having a second team in Quebec. Obviously, we know the history of the Nordiques. They go into that, the Canadian dollar being why they left. Give them one more year. Now, here's a really interesting part that I think is another sort of layer people are looking over here. Legault also noted on RDS that the Montreal Canadiens aren't doing a good enough job of employing French players, and bringing the Nordiques back would put pressure on them to do so. Quote, there must be more efforts made by the Canadiens, said Legault. I am still working to try and bring the Nordiques back. It would put pressure on the Canadiens. So, first off, if you're Gary Bettman, technically this is win-win no matter what. Because first off, they're not going to come back. And I think it was reported on 32 Thoughts last night that it seems Quebec have a consortium of investors coming in, and the price would be around $1 billion. I would assume they didn't specify, but I would assume that would probably be Canadian to match up with the $750 of $1 billion that Seattle paid. And that sounds right when you do what do you call it? What's the term when you do currency? The conversion, thank you. Yeah. So if you're Gary Bettman, right? Think of it like this. So everyone thinks you hate Canada, because you do. So what you do is you meet with the, even though it's like Quebec, a lot of people in Quebec, and especially if you look at the party François Legault is part of, they're basically like, Canada, Quebec, woo. So what you do is you go meet with the guy who wants to bring back the Quebec team that all of Canada want to see back, right? And you have an excuse to be like, oh, maybe you don't like the consortium or whatever. You find a reason not to do it, right? But you've done the meeting. So you have that public image of, I've done it.
I tried.
I
tried, man.
How dare they get our hopes up, by the way?
Oh, yeah. It's just... Noted Quebec lover, obviously, Gary Bettman, as we should start.
Remember when you forgot to congratulate the Habs on their season at the Cup presentation?
Oh my goodness.
I don't.
He's just jumping into these. It's just too easy, Gary.
Yeah, can I say I don't know what the correlation there is between bringing Quebec back and pressure on bringing in more French Canadian players. I genuinely don't know if there's an actual correlation there, because I think what's going to make it a better product is if both teams are doing well.
So here is what I would think, right? So apparently a part of this is there would be a lot of government backing to the to the Nordiques, right? I wonder, I want to be careful when I say this. If there are certain organizations within Quebec that would prefer a French team, and what I mean is one that has a real focus. Because if people think that Montreal are crazy with the French-speaking thing, which I think in regards to your coaching and general management is a very fair claim, but drafting-wise, they don't do that at all.
No,
right. They really don't. I think Louis LeBlanc was the last French guy they picked in the first round anyway.
That was a headache for them.
Yeah, it was. But anyway, I think it's overblown there. If there was a Quebec City team, you gotta remember when the Habs were at Quebec City for that preseason game a couple years ago when they got booed. People outside of Quebec, and I think more outside of Canada, I don't think they really know the animosity of like Quebec towards like Montreal is actually a very English speaking place compared to the rest of Quebec.
Yeah.
So if you think Montreal's bad for Quebec, like, or is more just the French centered place, the Nordiques coming back, it's like with like a guy like Legault backing them too, would be like, I think it would take pressure off of Montreal, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's the money in certain sponsorships is what the pressure is. I wonder, and that's what I would think, Alex.
No, that makes sense, and I get that sentiment, because you know what, I think it's it's like that in European countries when it comes to soccer. Like I know in Germany there's some rules and regulations about having to play a certain number of German players. I don't know if the way the NHL is set up, that is a way to make a team thrive. Like I think they'd have to be willing to lose money to build up the fact that we have to develop these players, where in the way I look at the system the NHL has, a lot of the development happens before they're drafted into the NHL. So wouldn't it be better to throw backing into the QM? Like my opinion would be throw a lot of backing into the QMJHL and to the teams in Quebec in the QMJHL, because that's predominantly where most of these French Canadian guys end up playing, whether it's in Quebec or in Halifax or wherever. I just don't know if the system's set up to bring in a team solely to develop French players, because that's what it sounds like they want to do.
Oh, you're on mute, Adam.
Oh.
That's embarrassing. No, like listen, I want the Nordiques back. Yeah. Okay, let's really be honest here. There is really no excuse for the NHL to have Arizona where they are. If the Quebec government is like, I'll give you $1 billion, our arena is built, and it's a good market. Like, not large, but it's not going to be empty at all. Like, that's what I think. Like, regardless of where it would end up and all that kind of stuff, it would still, and it's another argument for another day that we had with Will about, like, it makes no sense why the Nordiques are not back. And I think it was the Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly said, I think it was to Jeff Merrick, like, there were no meetings planned with Legault, even though Legault seems to be saying otherwise. Like, you're right when it comes to, like, the development of that and all that, but, it's just, there's a lot there. Yeah. Not to mention, do you really think that say what you want about Gary's love or supposed hate of Canada, is he really going to want to support a team that's going to take away from the money the Habs are making? Like, you don't sort of, what's the term? You don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You don't look at your prize golden hen that you have. And like, you know what? I'm going to give all these resources to the other team that's going to be your biggest competitor. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't see the NHL doing that. I mean, it wouldn't be the biggest deal because I'm pretty sure Jeff Molson's pretty well off with this money.
I don't think Montreal would allow it. Like, I think there would be a lot of pushback from Montreal or saying because to get this move, it would have to get approved by the Board of Governors. And Montreal would be saying, excuse me, Nashville, excuse me, Arizona. Did you really like those checks we sent you for the last 20 years? Okay, so maybe let's not do this because you're taking money from us. Like, I get Jeff Molson's well off, but it's the same argument I think it was Brian Burke used to make about those silly rumors about wanting to put a second team in Toronto, which obviously never happens.
Unless Gary says we're doing it. Like, then I think Molson would have to, because like the thing with Molson is he doesn't have the cojones to fire Bergevin. I doubt he's going to go against Gary Bettman. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what has. Listen, I want the team. I want Quebec City back more than anything. I don't like. I think it should happen to an extent. I would still believe at the end of the day the Habs would be fair off, but there's just so much there, and again, it's like the salary cap. We know it's not changing as long as Gary Bettman's around.
Exactly.
It's a shame, but. I want them back. I want them back really badly. Like, Battle of Quebec, I would love to go to those games. It would be super intense, but you know what I mean? It'd be cool.
The Nordiques actually would keep their superstars before beforehand.
You'd hope so. We'll see. Okay.
Hopefully they get their records back though.
Oh, could you imagine? That would be so lame if it's just like, yeah, and the leading scorer is this guy. And it's like, well, no, it's Joe Sakic, but technically, well, no, because okay, never mind. Discussion for another day. Colorado are respectable.